This video is going to remind you and review with you the steps for the order of operations and then embed some harder looking material and make the problems a little bit more complex than what you're used to, but it's still the same idea behind them. Right? So the first thing we want to review and go over is what are the order of operations. Right? And these are specific rules that you have to follow in a certain order to get the answer to come out the way you want to. Right? So the way that we've all been taught is the acronym Pemdas. Right, which if you have the sentence that goes with it, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now, each letter does stand for something, and I disagree with the first letter only because it is a little misleading. Right? In PEMDAS, the P does stand for parentheses. However, that is not the only thing that has to be done first. Right? Parentheses are a form of what are known as grouping symbols. So it should have been a G instead of a P technically. All right, but we're going to discuss what some of those grouping symbols are that you have to consider first before you can jump into any other math parts. Obviously, parentheses are one of them, and those are the ones that we're used to seeing. Okay, another grouping symbol would be your brackets, and those are the boxy looking pieces that surround an expression. Okay, another one would be the braces, which are your squiggly looking pieces that are on the outside. Okay. Another one would be your absolute value bars. And those we all know are the sticks with this expression in between them. Okay. And then another one that most people don't recognize as a grouping symbol or that is sometimes recognized would be your square root sign. Right? So we'll put square root here. And that's the symbol we've been dealing with. So all of those are considered your grouping symbols. If any one of those or any combination of those show up in your problem, you must do what's inside of them first before you can go to any other operation outside of them. Right? Now that's the P. The E hasn't changed. Right? That stands for your exponents. Okay? And we all know those are the little numbers up in the air. Okay? Then the next one go together. You do the M or the D depending on what you have, right? And the M stands for multiply and the D stands for divide. Now the trick behind these two, because they exist in the same problem together, or when they exist in the same problem together, multiplying does not always come before division, right? If both of them are in the same problem, it is left to right. So it's whoever is on the left you do first, no matter which one it is, and you go towards the right. Okay, so be very careful with the multiplying and dividing, right? And on the same note, the last two letters, the A and the S, stand for add and subtract, and they have the same rule, right? If adding and subtracting, right, are in the problem and that's all you have left, then you're going to solve them from left to right. It doesn't matter which one comes first. You just start at the left and work your way to the right. Right? So that's how PEMDAS works. And if you follow PEMDAS all the way through, you should end up with the right answer at the end, unless you've made a calculation mistake. Right? So the next couple things I'm going to show you are some examples that walk you through what it should look like and the kind of work that you need to be showing. I do need to see all of your work to show me how you get your answer, because if your answer is not right, we can back up to your work and figure out where exactly did you go wrong. Right? So we're going to do about 4 examples. Right? But before I do that, something's going to show up in these examples that you need to be aware of. Right? So we're going to put this as a little star off to the side. Right? Other than all the symbols and operations that I just mentioned, right, you are going to see a power of 0 show up. So here's a piece of information you need to know, and you can check it out in your calculator to confirm that this works. Any number raised to the power of 0 is 1. Okay. So an example of this, so you can see what I'm talking about, if we have 3 to the 0 power, if you type that in your calculator, you're going to get 1. It's not 0, right? It's 3 to the 0 power. Okay. If you have 15 to the 0 power, that is also 1. Okay. If you have a fraction raised to the 0 power, it is 1. If you have a letter raised to the 0 power, it is 1. So anything raised to the 0 power is that value of 1. And those are going to show up embedded into your order of operation problems now. So when you come across something like that, you turn it into a 1 and you keep going. Right? So we'll show you some of those as we go through. all right, to make sure you're understanding what to do with those. All right, so let's start off with a very basic example just to get you used to the flow of things. And then as I go through the examples, we'll make it a little bit more complex, right, and beef it up a little bit more. All right, so this first one is going to be parentheses 9 plus 6, closure parentheses, divided by 5 times 4 plus parentheses 3 minus 2. They are going to start off longer because the whole point of what you're doing is simplifying them down to one value as an answer. So it is going to start long and end up short at the end. All right, so looking at this example, the first thing we're going to do are the parentheses. Those are our grouping symbols, right? So that would be the 9 plus 6 and the 3 minus 2. And we can do both of those at the same time. There's no need to do one before the other in two separate steps. So 9 plus 6 makes 15. Bring down the divide by 5 and the times 4, because we're not ready to use that yet, plus now do 3 minus 2, which is your 1. Right, so the parentheses are gone. Your grouping symbol's done. Right, then if you look, you've got divide, multiply, and add. Right, so when we're looking at this, Pemdas says multiply and divide go together, but we have to do them from left to right. So because I have multiplying and dividing in this problem, right, I'm going to do this entire piece right here from left to right, but I'm going to do it in two separate steps so I don't lose anything. So 15 divided by 5 is going to make 3. Then bring down the times 4 plus 1. Okay, and now I'm going to do the 3 times 4, which is 12, and then I get to add the 1. So my final answer is 13. Okay, do not say equals 13 because we're not solving anything. We are evaluating, which means we're just coming up with an answer. All right, another word for evaluate is simplify. All right, so now if you look at the pattern or the shape of your work, every time you do an order of operations problem, your work is going to look like an upside down triangle. Right? It'll start wide at the top for the length of the problem, and it's going to come down to one number as an answer. So if your work is not doing that, you're not showing enough. All right? So be careful and make sure you've got all the in-between steps as you go through these problems. All right, so let's take a look at another one that's got some different stuff in it. Okay. This one is 8 squared plus 5, parentheses, 12 minus 6, divided by 3, closure parentheses. All right, so I've got my grouping symbols, and in the grouping symbols, I've got subtracting and dividing. When your grouping symbols have more than one operation in them, you still have to follow order of operations within the grouping symbols. So within the parentheses, division is going to come before the subtraction. So I'm going to take care of that first. So I still have 8 squared plus 5, parentheses, 12 minus, and then 6 divided by 3 turns into 2. Okay, I still have parentheses, and it still has a math problem that needs to be done inside. So I need to take care of that first. I need to make my grouping symbols go away. Okay, so now I've got 8 squared plus 5, parentheses, 12 minus 2 is going to turn into the single number of 10. Right, so now my grouping symbols are done. I've got exponents, adding, and multiplying left. Right, so Pemdas says that exponents are going to come next. 8 squared is 64. Right, it's 8 times 8, not 8 times 2. And then plus 5 times 10. Okay, and according to Pemdas, I'm going to multiply before I add, so I need to do the multiplication part next. 5 times 10 is going to be 50. And then I'm down to adding as my last step. 64 plus 50 is 114. Okay, and if you look at the shape of it, once more, it comes down into that inverted triangle piece. Okay, so again, if your work is not doing that, then you're not showing enough. All right, so make sure you put the in-between stuff in there. All right, now we're going to take and beef it up a whole bunch more. Those were examples you should have been able to do from 6th and 7th grade. There was nothing in there that's 8th grade specific, but let me show you what some of the 8th grade examples are going to look like. All right, they're going to be a little bit more complex in terms of what you're looking at doing. Okay. All right, so here's what the next one will look like. You have 2 on the outside of brackets, then parentheses, 7 minus 9, closure parentheses, times 5 squared, divided by 2, plus the square root of 49, closure brackets. All right, so it's got a lot of stuff in it. It's got a lot of grouping symbols, got a lot of operations, and we're going to have to go slowly and follow through Pemdas all the way through to get an answer that's going to come out right. It's very easy to mess this up by one mistake. All right, so let's see if we can take it slowly enough to get us through. All right. In the brackets, we see a lot of stuff. We got to start in those brackets, and in the brackets, we have 2 different types of grouping symbols. We have your parentheses, and we have the square root sign. We're going to start with the parentheses, because that's an actual math problem to do. But we can go ahead and do the parentheses and the square root at the same time, because they're not dependent on each other in terms of messing up your answer. So we're going to leave the 2 alone outside, keep your bracket. 7 minus 9 turns into the number -2. Then bring down times 5 squared divided by 2 plus, and then we can go ahead and turn square root of 49 into 7 and close our brackets. All right, so the parenthesis part is done, but now we still got to work within the brackets. The next thing we want to go to in the brackets are your exponents, and that would be the 5 squared part. So we rewrite the problem to say 2 bracket -2 times 5 squared is 25, okay, divide by 2 plus 7, close your brackets. Okay, still staying in the brackets, we've got multiplication and division in the same part, so we have to go left to right. So we're going to take care of the multiplication piece next before we go to the last piece. So we have 2 bracket, -2 times 25 is -50, divide by 2 plus 7, close your bracket. Okay, I still have division to go next. Okay, so I'm going to have 2 bracket, -50 divided by 2 is -25. Plus 7, close your bracket. I still have grouping symbols. I still have to do the problem inside of it. -25 plus 7 is going to give you -18. So we have 2 times -18. Okay, so now that I'm done to that one number inside, I can just go ahead and deal with the 2 on the outside. And 2 times -18 is going to make the final answer -36. And again, if you look at it, you've got the triangle effect going on with all of your work. Okay, so the problem is not difficult. You just have to take it slowly and make sure you're doing one thing at a time so that you don't make a careless mistake. Because that's usually what's going to get you is the carelessness, not the actual math. All right, and the last example we will do together is as bad as it's probably going to look in here. We have parentheses with absolute value of 6 minus 8 inside, plus 3 squared times 2, close your parentheses, divided by 4, plus 7 to the power of 0. All right, so taking a look at this and following through with our order of operations, we want to do grouping symbols first. In the grouping symbol of parentheses, we have another grouping symbol, so we have to do the absolute value part next. The absolute value of 6 minus 8 is going to turn into the absolute value of -2. Okay, we'll deal with that part in a minute. Plus 3 squared times 2 divided by 4 plus 7 to the 0 power. All right, now we still have those absolute value bars, so now it's time to get rid of them. The absolute value of -2 turns into +2. Plus 3 squared times 2, then divide by 4 plus 7 to the 0 power. Okay, and then in those parentheses now, we're going to take and do the exponents. Okay, so those exponents, 3 squared turns into 9 because it's 3 times 3, and then the rest is still there. Okay. Within the parentheses, we have adding and multiplication, so multiplication is going to come next. 9 times 2 is going to be 2 plus 18 in those parentheses. Divide by 4 plus 7 to the 0 power. Okay, we're still working within those grouping symbols. We can't do anything outside until the grouping symbol gets down to one number. So here's where it's going to do that. 2 plus 18 turns into 20, and our parentheses are gone. Divided by 4 plus 7 to the 0 power. Now we can come out and do other things. The exponents need to come next, right here. 7 to the 0 power, if you go back and look at the little note we made off to the side, anything to the 0 power is the number 1. So this is 20 divided by 4 plus 1. Okay, and now we have dividing and addition left. So we're going to divide first. 20 divided by 4 is going to give you a 5. Bring down the plus 1. 5 plus 1 gives you a grand total of 6. All right, so yes, there was a lot of more complex stuff in that problem, but if you go through the order of operations in the right way, it's not difficult to come out with the correct answer. Right? Just take it slowly, one thing at a time, all right, no matter how many steps it takes you, okay, and get to that final answer in the right way.